Goodness, I'll call this meeting to order. It's
You're muted.
4:30.
Unmuted.
Oh. Ladies.
Well, you know.
Oh,
Damn.
sorry.
Oh, there's no one who's dead.
I only did it because there's no one here.
Right, yeah.
Let's call this meeting to order. We're in the Frank Walter House boardroom. Gonna do a roll call.
Cunningham,
Present.
you're not excused. Markey,
Here.
Nye,
Here.
Roloff's excused. Sauer,
Here,
Worsakki,
Finally get to say it, president.
I've
All right,
been
let's
waiting for people to say that for 2 meetings.
Let's do the
First time I ever got.
pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I'm looking at Katie, to make sure there isn't anything we had to add.
Did
Is
you?
there any discussion?
I don't, other than changing things around, we
Order.
finalized the gym stuff, so that's not being added. So if we wanna adjust the order, I'm sorry, can't get the word out today, and talk maybe consent and then jail and then move into the ARPA and master plan, just because our visitors are coming at later times.
I think
So
that's what I said in my motion.
I think we
Okay.
did,
Just
yeah,
those A, B, C, and D accordingly.
yeah,
Okay,
so,
we'll take them as appropriate. How about that?
yeah, whatever works,
All those in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Got meeting minutes from February 13th.
I move to approve.
Any one with the second?
I will. I'd be
Motion.
glad to.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes of February 13th, say aye. Any opposed? All right, public comment. Do we have any public comment? Going once, twice?
They abandoned this.
Want to close public comment? Moves us into our first fun discussion, HR update.
Well, first,
Sure.
I did want to mention this morning. I do appreciate that the commissioners approved the EAP for our employees. I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about the rollout for that. Lauren didn't mention it this morning, but she did negotiate. Typically, there's a cost for them to come on site and roll out the project, but they did negotiate a zero cost on that. So it's a big win for us. It's a big win for Benzie County, and I'm very excited for our employees. So I just wanted to say thank you. Oh, I brought the wrong sheet. Well, no, you're just like- Just a few things to highlight, job openings, we're still recruiting for dispatch. We currently have one employee signed on, but I don't like to mention their name until they've officially started. So we do have a tentative start date for March 19th for a new employee starting. We also have dispatch testing currently going on. We'll have 4 this week, so that's very encouraging. We have 2, one current vacant position along with another position opening due to a retirement. There's no current work comp claims. We have 1 employee on a medical leave. And as we know, the lower level gym is going to be open pretty soon. I potentially launch that as March 16th, which is the day after the open house, is when I anticipate that would be ready for employees to utilize. I have received some gym waivers already, but I anticipate more over the course of the next few weeks. The reclassification process, I have the remaining departments listed there. The only one that's out of order is it's gonna be Register of Deeds and the Treasurer on the next meeting, and then the rest are in sequential order. ACA reporting is completed and it's been approved by the IRS, so I'm very excited about that. I've rescheduled my equalization visit, which I'll be there next week, and then I have 3 remaining departments to visit, so I'm very excited, and then I'll be complete. Does anyone have any questions?
This reclassification So should we have you reclassify the Board of Commissioners?
Well, you guys. just
Afraid what
think
she
about it.
classify us as.
Turn this into what?
I mean, you're elected, so it's non-union, non-elected, non-department head, so.
Oh,
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
there's always a catch.
we've been saying that all
Yeah.
along. Non-union, non-elected,
Non-union,
non-department head.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're
I just had to
Do you think
think
the
of.
potential exists to have any of these evaluations come up without adjustments to be made?
I think there is, we're starting to get into the departments now that already had a set, they already had a set pay scale. So previously, the departments that we were utilizing, such as district court, prosecuting attorney, only one of their employees actually had an existing pay scale, or I'm sorry, neither did. So we went through the departments that didn't currently have a pay scale. I think we're gonna see something more lining up where it's gonna be similar to the administrative assistant for the prosecutor's office, where it's gonna be just to be able to put them on the scale. But I think it'll be minimal going forward.
Yeah, I think she was a roundup of just a few
Yeah, she was like
cents.
50 cents.
Yeah,
So I don't anticipate anything large going forward. However, the process will kind of dictate that to me as well.
Out of the 100 grand, how much should we?
With the approval this morning, I want to say right around 35,000.
Just watching the news, watching UPS laying people off, where my son works. Parago, they're knocking a bunch of employees. Not saying it's all because of the economy. Part of it was the CEO. Trend now is getting a little iffy, so just wanted to bring that point up.
Sure, I would say just with some of the surrounding counties and what we're seeing is that I think we're very lucky in Benzie County and our retention of employees. And I think this just solidifies that going forward is retention of our employees. It's a lot easier to keep who you already have than try to go out and get new people. If there's a constant overturn, there's a cost associated with that. So I think it's vital to go through this process and how it benefits our employees. And I think it shows your investment in them and it shows their investment in Benzie. I think it's mutually beneficial.
Well, time will tell.
mhm.
Well, I think the history has shown that.
Yeah, well said.
Is there anything else? Again, thank you so much for this morning and thank you so much for everything. Good job.
Like for you, we're getting into budgeting next month. We can start looking at the numbers.
We're also getting into union contracts. I am extremely nervous on how this is gonna pan out, but see.
So which topic do we want to go into next?
Either is fine. The sheriff just got here, so we can talk jail or we can talk consent agendas as requested by Commissioner Sauer.
I don't care. Let's take care of the sheriff first.
Take care.
That
of
way
the
if he
sheriff.
has to go, he can.
So at the last I think it was the last meeting, right? It was requested that we add the jail staffing and the budget to this study session to talk about. As we know, the millage, even if it is passed in August, it's not gonna levy until the winter tax bill. So there's still this gap of time of how do we determine one or two additional staff in the meantime? There's no budget in the jail fund to support that. I did put the trial balances in the packet so you could see that. The sheriff and I sat down and we talked about, first the timing of the millages, and just trying to be conscious of not stacking things up for law enforcement purposes. So you would have noticed today in the jail resolution, the timing, it'll be so that, there's only 2 for the ballot rather than 4 or whatever. But in the meantime, we have to figure out how are we gonna add a person to try to work on the schedule so we're not incurring a ton of overtime. They have worked to make some shifts and changes in their scheduling. I know that Lieutenant Smith is helping out in the jail a bit too, to try to offset some of that overtime and scheduling. But we still have to figure out some of the gap in the meantime. And so, as you know, it's about 80 to 100,000 for one person for a full fiscal year. we are coming in hot on almost 50% of this fiscal year. So given timing, probably $50,000 to $60,000 to get somebody in here before the next fiscal year. And that would have to come from other funds. Because as the jail stands right now, it's not gonna be, unless we pull from their fund balance. So.
Saying we're one, if we got one person right now, it would put us where we need to be?
So the recommendation is 2, but for the few months meantime, we can make 1 work until we could get some full funding to bring on that second person.
I guess before we talk about it, is it, would you be able to even find somebody in that period of?
Yes.
Yeah.
As a matter
Oh,
of fact,
okay.
we have a list of 3,
Hmm.
because we're anticipating on top of this, the retirement
Okay.
in May. So we have 3 folks already in the process.
Yeah.
We've started backgrounds. We're
Doing the proper.
we're ahead of,
Are they
Schedule, if
MCOs,
you
are they
will.
MCOs certified?
no.
I was gonna say, can I get their phone number?
Nice try.
Sure. He's not like him today.
Picking right out here.
Oh. Ah,
But you do have a list then already.
We have a
Alright,
list.
that's
We
great.
have
Potential candidates, yeah.
Okay.
things in place. All we need is
Money.
approval and funding, and we'll be ready to roll.
Speaking of funding, you said jail fund balance. There is a fund balance in the jail?
So we worked really, really hard after last fiscal year to sock some money away.
Hmm.
And so, they do have about $100,000 in fund balance.
I say hire one.
So
if
we
it
worked
would
really
help.
hard that, but it's not high enough, but we can,
Well, we've got an issue up there,
Hmm.
from what I can tell. I'm more worried about safety of employees, stuff like that, and if we can, if one would help. And
It would bridge the
won't cure the problem, but that's what the fund balance is for, as far as I'm concerned.
That a motion? Oh, we can't make a motion.
you guys can make a recommendation
Make
to
a
the full board where
recommendation.
you could take final action on April 9th to secure that.
I would be happy to make that recommendation. We pursue one employee. Well, we can, I'm sure the village thing is always up in the air, but to do what we can now. I'm very concerned about what's going. Don't add any of that crap. I just think it's important to get somebody up there.
And we're prepared. I mean, like I said, we have
In your
people.
list of 3, do you have the candidate who you would select? If you
Yep.
had the,
Yes.
which of the 3 you would choose?
Well, the top 2, because one will replace this, person who's retiring in May. And then it would be the second.
And those, the first individual has already done the pre-test. And we're doing the background, but with approval, it would be psych test and implementation, like we'd be ready to hit the ground running.
Any chance that the addition of the 1 employee would solve the problem or not likely?
No, because we're still having to utilize, like she said, Lieutenant Smith is filling gaps to make things better, but that's not something we can rely on long-term. This
Yeah.
one person is not going to fulfill our,
What shifts are they on? Are they 8s, 10s?
they're on 12s.
Are they? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So we do have a motion. Did we get a second?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
I think it's great that Lieutenant Smith is filling in and bridging that gap. And it was my understanding that perhaps that might be a solution. I know he has an administrative role. But if he's doing it now and it's causing some relief, I appreciate that, and maybe it's something he could do in the future as well.
This help reduce overtime. By getting one. Not eliminate.
It won't eliminate it.
But it would reduce some, I would.
It will help, and if we get another, it will help even more, of course. But there's a lot of moving parts to this as well with personnel. Right after we had this discussion, the last meeting, We had sent two are in the academy right now, which is a requirement, as you know, within the first year. We're down 2 people. I mean, we're only down on paper 2 people. That's another thing that we have to constantly deal with when we have turnover, is the fact that they have to go to training that's mandated. So
You've been in this role a long time, or up there a long time. Has there ever been a block of time where there wasn't turnover? And do you remember, I mean, I guess my assumption would be if there wasn't turnover, even with paid time off and vacations and such, it would be possible to remain within budget without that kind of turnover. Is that fair or no?
yes, if you recall, the millage wasn't fully funding that. There was kick-in from the county.
Yeah, prior to the last one.
And so we kept adjusting that portion of it to make that a reality, and we, we've fallen short over the years.
But is
But-
turnover common? Is it as common as it seems? I mean, it seems to be a lot right now.
In that division, it's more common than the roadside.
Okay.
But we actually, we went from losing 7 that one year. I can't recall the exact year. When I first started as sheriff, we lost the 7 and we had to really do a lot of work to get that filled. And then we went for a period of time. I kept coming down here, knocking on wood and saying, we're fully
Mhm.
staffed, and everyone's been to the academy, and this is just going so well. And I shouldn't have said anything, but, and then things happen and we're down a couple. Then there's a retirement coming up, and we're having to, work through the state's guidelines, and here we are again, so.
It's cyclical.
So there was a time in history when staffing was, a little more consistent, and we didn't have these wild world where people are leaving all the time. And so there was a point in time up until about just before COVID, when overtime was consistently between that $40,000 and $50,000 mark. That seemed to be kind of the trend for corrections, was like that $40,000 to $50,000. Since then, it's just been ticking up and up and up. And, a lot of things go into play with that. You have staff who's changing, you have games sometimes that are played, you have all these things going into that. So if we're adding people, I would hope the trend would go down, and I think it will. I really do. More people up there, less overtime to incur.
I
So, but
appreciate you
it's-
tracking that because it's indicative of
Yeah.
what's working. and
So
what's
before
not.
COVID, when things I think were normal, somewhere between 40 and 50 seemed to be kind of the trend for overtime for corrections specifically. So,
There's a lot of mandatory overtime, if I'm not mistaken,
mhm.
holidays and stuff like that.
We call that scheduled overtime.
Yeah,
where that's-
scheduled overtime.
But you
Because
know
we-
that's coming.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can plan for that, and then you put the other on top.
we plan for that because we can't just shut the lights out and walk away.
I know.
You know,
Yeah.
just lock them in their cells, shut the lights off. We'll see you in the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
See how that works.
We need to be clear because that plan for overtime isn't the kind of overtime that we're talking about. That's budgeted differently because we know that's coming. The overtime we're talking about is outside. Right?
Yes, so we went
Okay.
through and did the calculation. Yeah, so it's outside.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Most of that's because we're shorthanded.
It really, yeah, we've been pretty shorthanded, and it's been weird up there. So, we can't help that.
Medical runs, prison,
And kind of, not going to soapbox here, but like Jackie said earlier about paying people and keeping people. I know when Kyle and I started in this career 30 years ago. Yeah, 30, too long
Six.
ago, but you used to know, okay, I'm never gonna be rich, but I'm gonna have great benefits and a retirement. And then through the years, that all gets chiseled away, but the pay never is commensurate with what gets taken away. And now today, you don't have pensions anymore. Like it isn't this career path that people are wanting to take now because, well, you get beat up in the media
I'm
and
saying
then
we've
you
been
don't have all the
villainized
good
media.
benefits that you used to have and nobody wants to do it anymore. It's hard to keep people.
It's unfortunate.
We've been luckier than most though, through all that. When you look at all the, I mean, obviously I talk to sheriffs and go to conferences and we are, in spite of our issues, we are very, very, very blessed and sitting in a good place, truly. We are.
Generally, when we have someone come on as a deputy, I'm not saying corrections, they usually stay pretty long, don't they?
Yes.
Usually.
Yes.
Hope they feel supported.
There was a time I knew all the deputies. It's not the case right now.
Oh, you'll get there again.
Probably.
Behave yourself.
Well, get a free ride in the car again.
You
we
shut
bring
the
back the
lights off
mounted
and let it
division
stay.
so I can do it?
That's
Did
what
we
I'm
ever
talking
vote?
No, I was gonna just say we got,
Oh, sorry.
well, I was letting you the discussion go because we have until 1:30 now.
So you have taken the motion to recommend forward to allocate fund balance for the position for the remaining of the fiscal year. And then as we get into budgeting, we'll approach that second position with the hope that the millage passes.
Yep.
By then
We're putting that on,
Yeah.
I think that's what Gary said.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
recommended the full
Oh,
board to
yeah.
do that.
oh,
Yeah, so it'll be fully approved with a budget amendment presented on April 9th.
thank God for Tammy over there. Uh,
And
Right. Is that supposed to be in August?
It's going to be on the August ballot, so we'll know mid-budgeting what we're looking at. Yep.
They're staggering.
I mean, we'll start budgeting here in April at a staff level. But by August, when it's coming to you guys, we'll have a good path, hopefully.
All right, let's take a vote on that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Moving forward, we're ready.
Thank you. One step at a time. Yes.
The next item for discussion is consent agendas.
Yes. So I included in the packet the printout that Gary had given me that was from MSU Extension regarding consent agendas. I do want to remind you that you have all always had a consent agenda. You've always had a consent agenda with the rules that you have in place. All we did was move it up on the agenda. In the past, you guys would populate your consent agenda based on these meetings in the afternoon. The difference is now, rather than just these meetings in the afternoons, staff or Tammy and I will, discuss a thing and say, well, geez, that seems pretty boilerplate. Let's put it on the consent agenda. But other than that, nothing has changed. You guys have always had a consent agenda. It was just later in your agenda, as you'll recall. So, according to this MSU extension printout, there's supposed to be special rules for the consent agenda. Basically, the special rules are calling out how the consent agenda would be approved, or items would be removed. You'll recall at the first couple of meetings when we first implemented this kind of new style of consent agenda at the beginning of the agenda, I read rules. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial, blah, blah, blah. I read all of that off and I indicated that items could be removed and that, the consent agenda was adopted by one motion of the board. I guess I need to hear from you guys if you like the trend. Do you want to go back to the old way? If you want to keep it up on the new trend, we can amend the actual board rules to include that kind of little verbiage so that the special rules are in place. I just need to hear from you. I've heard concerns about consent. I've heard good things about consent. It's really just, it's your meeting and it's your rhythm. So I guess, how do you guys want to proceed?
Reason I brought this forward, because I feel a lot of stuff we don't discuss. And it's not necessarily non-controversial issues. Anybody's opinion is not, I just feel that we need to discuss this stuff, whether we do it in a study session ahead of time. I never considered when we move stuff to the board as a consent agenda. And anywhere else that I've seen a consent agenda used, they do it for the treasurer's report, they do it for the minutes and those kind of things, just to expedite things. I don't have a problem with the way we're doing it. But I'm probably gonna pull most of it if we don't get to talk about it. And, it's not that I'm trying to be a pain in the butt, but I just think there's 7 members on this board, should be fully aware. I know she prints everything for an opportunity to read it. But I think it ought to be hashed out by the Board of Commissioners. I just feel that's our job. So, we can continue with what we're doing, but count on me to pull them. Just saying.
But I mean,
Let's just do
things
it.
like, I get that, but I mean, things like like today, item A, right? Consider the recycling lease agreements. There's absolutely no change in those from year after year after year. I mean, things like that, we don't have, I don't see a need for us to
No.
discuss things like that. We can put on a consent agenda.
Same thing with the sheriff's,
And with, yeah, the
road
thing with the
patrol stuff
jail, I
and
mean,
stuff like that, that we
right.
do every year.
right.
I don't have a problem with that. Unless you have a
But those
question.
items that you just identified, valid questions were asked.
I
You had a
asked a
question
lot
about the
of
recycling.
Right.
You had questions about the jail, and I mean, I agree with you. If we move forward with it, I have pulled items off the consent calendar, and it took me a little bit to get up to speed with the committee of the whole and how that was a consent calendar
Yeah,
that we
you got-
approved. Yeah, no, I get it. I'm going, when did we have that in the
Yeah,
past? But
you've
you're right.
always had it.
Yeah, we kind of did that, but even with that form, discussion always happened. I don't ever yeah, items were pulled. It was kind of like, no, I want to
Yeah.
continue talking about that.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
really is the same rhythm. The only difference is that the way we're doing it now, Tammy and I sometimes will make that decision to put it on consent versus you only being the ones to make that decision. That's really the only difference. Other than that, it's the same way you guys have always done it. It's just that there's some things now where Tammy and I were like, that's boilerplate. Let's, that doesn't, and even at the agenda review, we'll go through and say, should this be old business, new business, or consent, and things will adjust at that point too. But that's really the only difference. Otherwise, it's how you guys have always done it.
And a lot of times, when we did it at the committee of the whole, had 2 weeks to think about it, so
Right.
things come up. My concern with what we're doing now, you don't have a whole lot of time to investigate some things. So that's my concern.
I don't have a problem talking about everything. I mean, that's why
Yeah.
we're here. And for things that we don't understand, or perhaps new members don't understand, those conversations benefited me as a new commissioner and even as a more seasoned one. I learned things based on our conversations that we have. I know there are items like I guess I'm trying to jog my memory and go, what do we know reoccurs, like the cottage contracts, the different areas where it's the same contract, they're just renewing. But also, does it take that much to just address them individually and say, this is the same thing we've dealt with in the past? And then if somebody, I can see your point. I don't have a strong feeling that it's necessary. I'm not looking to speed up the meetings. I don't mind having discussions about every item, and those that truly are routine, there shouldn't be discussion about it. Because everybody would understand why it's on there and that we've done it in the past and we would move on.
So if you recall today's agenda, we removed consent. So kind of gives you something to compare. If we say remove the consent option off the agenda, all meetings would be structured like this morning's. Or if you think back at the last meeting or the meeting before, when there was a consent and 3 or 4 items were just approved with one motion versus discussing those 3 or 4, but then we discussed everything else individually. So, kind of comparing that can help you make that decision. Today, Tammy and I completely removed the consent and just did the old business, new
But
business.
what about the consent portion for the stuff we do today? Are you saying eliminate that too?
So
'Cause then what's
your
the point
recommendation
to-
forward today would go under old business. We wouldn't have a consent. So it'd just be under old business. It would be considered on its own individual merit under old business because you're discussing it today, making it old business for the next meeting.
So we had a consent calendar like we've done in the past.
Uh-huh.
And there's some routine things there that we're all very comfortable with.
Mm.
And there's a couple things on there that Gary or myself, anybody wants to pull.
Yep.
We pull it
Yep.
and we have that in-depth discussion.
Yep.
That way we can maybe get rid of the trivial things that, okay, we all saw it, we look at it in the packet, we're good with it. We don't need to discuss it. Let's just move on.
And we can do that, but you need to tell me what you think is trivial, because I put a budget adjustment on there for a grant that you all approved a few months ago and you still pulled it from consent. And to me, that was old business. It was just the budget adjustment to accept the money that you already approved. So to me, I guess that is trivial
Well,
in your words,
and it could
but
have
it was
been,
pulled.
when it was pulled, the person may have not done their due diligence and read through the packet ahead of time.
So I guess if we want to keep on that train, I need to know what you all consider the boilerplate, easy approval, trivial stuff, because I apparently don't know.
Well, maybe we'll determine that over time. Maybe it's a getting used to it kind of thing.
Okay.
Maybe it's not because this is new to some of us, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's well, we're doing it for a while.
Mhm.
Now we're getting used to seeing some of these items. And we may pull them a couple times and then okay. And then the next time we see it, we're not going to pull it. Does that make sense? I mean,
Mhm, mhm,
this is
I-
new. The concept, I guess, is new for us.
mhm.
I think you're gonna run into some issues, especially with it being an election year. If you have new people sitting here, the things that we think are routine
Or not.
are not going to be, and they're gonna have to be explained and require discussion. And, I'm just gonna say it, even the routine things, when it comes up and Katie gives her explanation about why we're voting on it and stuff, I learn new things all the time, because we took the time to talk about it.
Mhm.
And I just, again, I don't want to do a consent calendar for brevity or just to accommodate a speedier meeting. That's not, I would lean towards talking about each item.
So how we did it today.
I
think
thought
that's
today went
better.
well.
But I also like the committee of the whole. Because something happens in that week or two. That triggers something that you're looking at. That you're missing. I also feel that by discussing it, we're helping the public understand where we're going with this.
I agree.
And just to throw it out there and say we're having a consent agenda, everything's approved, they're saying, you guys just want to get out of here.
Right.
So, yeah.
And by the same token, so if we go with the consent calendar route, the conversation we just had with the motion we made to move the one employee forward, that would end up on the consent calendar. And I mean, I want to give consideration to the fact that Bob's not here, Art's not here. They're probably going to want to rehab that conversation. So they're on the same understanding that everybody who casts the vote is. So it's going to have to be pulled anyway.
So I think you just get rid of it, honestly. In that
But then why do
situation.
this meeting? Why don't we just discuss everything at one meeting? Why do the study session?
It's
I-
because we don't have time to research stuff in between, and that to me is a concern, because there's been a lot of times something comes up. I mean, suppose we find out later, we don't have $100,000 in contingency. Sheriff's Department or
So
something like
leave
that.
this,
I think this meeting stays. I like these meetings and
right,
honestly, you guys have much better
You're not saying
dialogue and
take this one
discussion
away.
in this meeting
Yeah,
than
this
you
is
do in the
more
board.
like kitchen table in the
Mhm.
study session.
Yes.
The way I would
So
describe it
this
that
meeting
way.
stays, period. I think what we're focusing on is the morning meeting and just getting the consent off that agenda and everything is its own merited item.
I think that sounds good.
That's what I'm hearing. This meeting stays though. These are
no,
good
no, no, what I
discussions.
mean is. What we do here and move forward will stay on a consent, but then if it gets pulled at the next one,
No, I think it goes.
so
under
we'll
old
rehash
business.
everything again.
We don't have to.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Like Ron has said, you're missing two people right now.
You might have to
Right.
rehash
They
some.
have a different.
No, I get that,
Yeah.
But
but
if
if
they were
but if
here-
everybody's here and we moved it forward,
perhaps there
And-
wouldn't be discussion because everybody would be comfortable with just going
Mhm.
to a vote. But
Okay,
at least you get that opportunity to
Right.
say, you know, did I remember this correctly? And this is why it just, you don't have that feeling of, because when you pull something, there's always this feeling of, sorry, guys, I'm gonna pull this because I have a question, you know, that's how
That's
you
why I
feel.
do all of them,
Mhm.
so everybody
Right.
gets mad at me.
you never say sorry though.
I don't plan on it. Yeah, I understand. You know, I just feel it's our responsibility to get this information to the public best we can. These discussions really help, I feel.
Part of the you know,
I'm good
that's-
both ways, and so, and I do think we have good discussion on these topics. And if nothing else, it sometimes helps the public understand why we make our decisions too.
Mhm. It's you. I don't want to put this on the consent agenda, but I recommend.
Recommend on the consent agenda that we
You're-
get rid of the consent agenda.
No, so your recommendation is going to be to amend your board rules to remove the consent agenda from the agenda format. Because you guys establish your agenda format within your board rules. So you're simply going to amend your board rules to eliminate the consent agenda off your agendas.
How about we just leave it there for now and don't put anything on it? Then
You
we
can
don't
do
have to
that.
amend, well, we don't have to amend any rules. I mean, if.
Yeah.
Maybe, like you said, Art and Bob come back and they say, well, we should do it for, you know, just,
Mhm.
Yeah,
you
I
can
know.
leave it on there, just don't put anything on it.
You don't have to change, we can just
We don't have to.
pull it
change any
off
rules.
and we just won't use it per se.
Sounds wonderful to me.
You guys tell us.
So no motion.
I think if we're not gonna use it, we should take it off. It seems silly to have.
But in the
something
future, are we considering using it for the treasurer's report and the clerk? Those are the two things that are,
You guys call
consistently
out
come-
that you don't have to.
that we don't have to be doing. That's the type of stuff I thought should have been on. You know, everybody calls Tammy ahead of time if there's a misspelling or something like that.
Sure,
So is that something we consider for a consent agenda?
sure.
In the treasurer's report? I don't understand it half the time anyway. But I rely on these folks to give us the best information.
I
What do
would
you
agree
think?
with
I
that.
mean-
I would agree with that. If we could do those with one
Yeah.
motion, perhaps that could be a purpose for the consent agenda and. Can I digress a little bit? in the
Absolutely.
No.
conversation?
We got 20 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, I am probably, I love that we're trying new things and deciding what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more time we give it, but I am probably gonna throw out the option of bringing back our bi-weekly commissioner reports. I really don't
I
like.
having a hard time doing a monthly report.
I really think that by the time we get to the end of the month, a lot of us attend a lot of meetings and it's old news and that because we have bi-weekly meetings, I was willing to give it a try. And I think I'm to the point where it's kind of like, I wish we were doing it the old way. I'd like to report on what I've done the previous 2 weeks instead of have to go back a month and tell you about things that happened a month ago when it's more relevant if you know within the last couple weeks. And for the public to know within the last couple weeks, we're
Mhm.
here, we meet. I want to tell you where I've been and what I've been doing. So I mean, I don't know anybody else's feeling. Perhaps people love it, just doing the one report a month. I'm not a big fan so far.
Cause I use that report when I go to talk at other places. And I have to sit there and decide. Okay, when was the last time I was here? Cause. I
Too
wasn't
dated.
here. Yeah, it's too
Too
dated,
dated
it's
after
right.
a month.
So.
I was under the pressure. People don't care what I have to say anyway, so it doesn't matter.
well, they
You heard
don't,
us talking behind your back?
But I think I agree with Rhonda that should go. back.
I still like for the report, and yes, we are digressing. It's not really on there.
No, I apologize.
But doing a hybrid of it. I don't go through everything on there. It's it's written down. It's there for people to read. And then I highlight. It's like when I go to one of my townships or city or something, I go to whoever's in charge and I say, I was thinking of 1, 2, and 3. They don't want me, they get it, they post it. So for me, I do it that way. And then supervisor, mayor, whoever tells me, oh, no, you really don't need to cover that, but if you could do this one.
That's really interesting because I don't do it that way. I report to you here where I've been on my assigned committees, my villages and my township. And I report to them what
We do
happens here.
here. That's what I do.
So I don't use that report that I give here unless they ask for a copy of it because it's, I turn it into Tammy every meeting and it's published. So I
Don't include.
don't include, no peripheral unless something, unless they overlay, if there's something in my
A
village
connector.
that, impacts my township, I might mention that. But generally, I'm telling them what's happening at the county level with my commissioner hat on.
That's the way I do it.
That's what
Yeah.
I do.
And that's what I do on the report. I have that, but then I highlight the things that are connected to city or township. But they may have other connections. I just give them the whole report.
Hmm.
But anyway, so it's only highlighting. I do agree with you that some of the information is pretty dated. At 1 month. Sometimes I've gone to several meetings and now I have the answer to what I've already reported, 4 weeks earlier, and I can give an update on it. So I just eliminate those things on the next report that I provide for them. I give them updated.
Can bring that up at the next meeting in April.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
happy to
we-
go with what the.
Because we
consent
eliminated this month completely.
Put it in the consent agenda.
Anyways,
So
All right, so we know
April,
we're doing with the consent agenda, correct?
Think so.
we're not using that. So April 9th, we're gonna discuss commissioner reports again.
And my vote would be to go back to the old way, but again, I will yield to what the rest of the board likes to do. I'm not a fan of what we've changed to. Just thought I'd get that out there. And I do think the consent agenda, we were gonna include the treasurer's report in.
Oh, yes.
In there. And just start with that, so.
I'm
That's
adding.
everybody else. If we want to continue a while and see if it grows on us. but I just think I would rather report each meeting where we've been and what we've done.
I agree.
That's too much for one meeting and too dated. So you're right.
So do we need to discuss it on April 9th, the commissioner reports, or are we just going with it?
Well, I think we're gonna have to give them, well, no, yeah, we're missing.
Two
So are we,
people.
so is it gonna be 2 months of
Be 2
reports?
months.
Since we're missing,
Well, you were giving them at the second meeting.
right?
So if you wait until April 20,
it would be 2
whatever, it
months.
would be 2 months. So I will put it as
Just
an
do it at the
agenda
next
item
one.
on April 9th to discuss commissioner reports, and then we can give them at that point. And then Tammy has it in her notes that consent will consist of the bills and the minutes for now, and then we can figure out if there's any other boilerplate things to add.
And that can be determined at an agenda review, perhaps, if there's something, I don't know.
They already were.
Okay,
So we'll stick with the two we know.
Okay.
And then we'll just find our way. Yeah.
But I would also say if there is something that is so bland, right, like we do would we say the cottage contracts? At least throw it on there.
Oh,
and
summer
see-
road patrol.
And see if it gets through another, I mean, so we could learn
Right.
and proceed through it. I mean, cause some of it,
I'm just looking at my list, so I could maybe give you some sort of example.
Well, policies.
Yeah, what about policies? I mean, those go in front of the elected officials, the staff, as well as our attorneys before they come to you.
Even if you had them listed, I don't think there'd be much of a discussion.
So policy two as
If you want to
as
do
a
10 policies at once.
boilerplate consent.
So I want to be able to start smoking in here again during meetings.
Oh, geez.
Go ahead.
I mean, when I think of the policies, I think of, well, you guys are the professionals and you also have the department heads look at them and I mean, what are we gonna say who's not here on it? Like, I would agree that they could be on the check off list. I mean, I trust that you guys can do it because that's your job.
Can't rid of, geez. If you have to, you pull them and find out, so.
There you go.
So
I would
as
go with
a,
the policy.
as a common, bills, minutes and policies, anything else would be a case by case later determined, right?
Comfortable with that.
Okay, we can do that.
Apparently Tim wants a smoking policy.
We have one.
I don't
and it
smoke.
They
says
already
don't do
have.
it.
I don't smoke, so I want to start.
We have one that says don't do it.
We want to take a 10-minute recess?
Yes.
Break. Reset, we're gonna go outside and play.
But he did that, everybody wants to come over and help.
Call this meeting back to session. Recess is over.
Total. Okay.
Okay.
We are now discussion regarding early childhood funding from ARPA for both the schools and other community organizations. So schools, you want to come up and tell us what you want to tell us?
So I'll just start with, as a board, we've been talking ARPA for a couple of years. We did a survey. As a reminder, that survey gave us a top 10 of what the community wanted us to spend that money on. So far, we've really made our way down the list and affected almost everything on that list except childcare. Childcare is one avenue that we really haven't made any sort of impact in, even though it was in the top 3, even above broadband in the survey from our community. The superintendents approached me a couple of months ago with an idea of expanding childcare for both of the school districts. Since then, it's kind of morphed and we've had meetings with various members of the 0 to 6 work collaborative about ways that we could affect more than just the schools potentially with this money. So the schools are here today to really talk through their ideas for utilizing the ARPA dollars to impact childcare here in Benson County.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Towsley, Superintendent for Frankfurt, Alberta Area Schools. And it is a tag team. And we came together quite a while ago to figure out what we could do to impact our youngest children across the county, across both school districts. Being involved with early childhood for not as long as probably Amy or our 2 wonderful supervisors behind us, which we'll introduce in just a second. One thing with early childhood I have found it's one of the more complicated pieces of working with early education for a number of reasons. Partially, it's probably one of the lowest funded activities in the state, and it's just one of the things we have to deal with. So when that takes place, we try to figure out as many ways as we can to provide the services for our kids. Most recently, our youngest students, we have early childhood at Frankfurt, Alberta Area Schools. And then this past year, we introduced infant toddler programming as well, which comes with very little funding, if any, actually 0, as far as revenue for us. So a lot of that then becomes, it's either tuition based on our parents. We try to get some additional grant funds, which is very difficult to do. So we're here today just to present some ideas from both districts. But at this point, I just would like to introduce Amber. She'll be up in just a minute. Amber Wilson is our early childhood director, does an outstanding job. And thank goodness she is there. Preschool early childhood came to me many years ago, quite a few years ago now, when Paul Oliver had the program in place. And they said, then it went to the ISD, Northwest Ed ISD, it was TBA at that time. And I talked to one of the directors there and they said, will you please take on early childhood in your district? And I said, I was very reluctant because I knew the rules and regs that come with it. And I'm so glad that we did at this point, because it really services our families very well. And we want to expand and do a better job as much as we can. So that's why I am here. As I said, it's a joint effort, and then Amber and Melinda will talk on behalf of their districts as well. So Amy.
Thanks, Jeff. And I want to say that I really appreciate that we have the partnership that we do, because we both see the value in making sure that we're taking care of our youngest little people in Benzie County. We started with the focus several years ago, like Jeff said, with having 4-year-olds getting preschool, and then 3-year-olds were added. But we very quickly realized in the last couple of years that there's not enough infant toddler spots for staff. And we have a lot of younger staff and they don't have a place for their children. And we were starting to uncover that if we don't have childcare, they won't have a job, and then we won't have the teaching staff that we need. So we have continued to try to find ways to make that happen. And as Jeff said, there is really 0 funding for infant toddler, and it's not something that we make money from. The 1-to-4 ratio that's needed for that classroom requires a lot of staff. And as you probably had heard about, Lake Ann had to close a preschool room earlier this year. It was due to staffing. That is our biggest challenge and hurdle that we're trying to overcome. It's hard to find people. There's a lot of work that goes along with getting them credentialed and having the licensing requirements that are needed. And so professional development is a big piece of what we're hoping to talk with you about as well. And we need to make sure that we have the space available to make that happen. So our money that we receive for K-12 education doesn't cover the cost for infant toddler. Even our GSRP funds are really, that's not the intention for those. So that is a concern that we have to keep this open. We have to provide a livable wage for our staff that are providing this really valuable service for the community. So thanks for hearing our proposal. And I forgot to introduce Melinda Kozier is our early head director for Benzie Schools.
Yes. So we won't read through the proposal because that should be in your packet. And the superintendent did a really nice job of giving you the history. For us, we've worked over the past, Melinda's been with us 3 years and I've been around, for all of the years that the schools have had the programs as their own. And we've worked really hard to be really frugal with our budget and make it stretch as far as we can. We have some really amazing staff. Early childhood staff are the best. I'm only just a little bit partial to them. And so when we decided to take on infant toddler care, we knew that it would be tricky because we have to have our best staff in there. These are our kids that rely on us 100% for their care and safety. Not that preschool doesn't, but these are the little ones that really need us the most. So our proposed budget has infant toddler program enhancement, community resource fair, and then some professional development that can be used for all early childhood providers in Benzie County. Melinda, do you want to?
Yeah, so our proposed budget, so infant toddler program enhancement, we're looking at developmentally appropriate furniture and toys for those classrooms. That is looking at 15,000 per district. The resource fair, we were looking at door prizes. I'm not sure shared on that. That's going to be a community-wide event that we're also working with the 0 to 6 committee as well on. And then the professional that's $1,000 per district for that. And then professional development, it's an ongoing community of practice with applied educational neuroscience as the basis of learning. So that's not just for our school districts, it's also for the others in the community too. Like at Whistle Stop, we had talked to Ashley too as well about helping out with doing some professional development, just so that we were kind of sharing that wealth of knowledge. That way everybody's being able to participate with those. And that's a year-long process. We have several things for that. And that's $5,000 per district.
What questions do you have for us?
Well, Amy brought one up. Go ahead. Almost sounds like this is being set up for your staff. Your employees, your teachers and stuff like that, so the kids have a place to go. I don't think anything wrong with it, but this is county money. It should be available to everybody. And is there a tuition fee?
So when we started at Benzie a year ago, the intention was to make sure that staff had care. And not just our teaching staff, but also the preschool staff that were providing care for other people's children. Once we were able to open that up, we opened it up to the community. So right now it's not just staffs, it's community-wide. And our Lake Ann program actually does have people that are not right in the Lake Ann area. We do have some people that are traveling there to bring their children for care.
And I'll respond. We do have staff whose children are in these programs as well. Here at
I know
Benzie
we
County.
do that, but, and what kind of tuition you making or requiring them to pay?
Yeah, our infant toddler program is $60 a day, and I believe Benzie's is 65.
It's 60 currently.
It is
Yeah,
60
it's
currently,
60.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
60 a day. So we work backwards. So we see how much it's going to cost us to run the program, including staffing. I mean, staffing is our expense, right? Everything else is negligible. And then we work backwards on how we can make zero at the end of the year.
Because this is a one-time, one-shot deal, so
Yep.
you're fully aware of that, so thank you.
And we talked about on Friday, when we met as actually a larger group, Sarah May had called it together, which we appreciate. Maybe you did, Amber, sorry. And we talked about how, we're all part of this service industry. And so naturally, a lot of the funding does go to your people, because we're providing a service. And so it naturally goes there. And that's when we started talking about this professional development piece. Yeah, we're focusing a lot on the schools and some of their classrooms, but this professional development piece is really huge for all the providers in Benzie County. I know that we talked about other groups like Ashley's group, where, she's got people in the middle of professional development. They do. And if we can work together to provide that continuing ed and that credentialing to all those folks, we're impacting the whole county. And as Amy said, that classroom closed because we didn't have the staff. So if we can invest in all of these early childhood folks here in the county, we're creating that staff to keep more of those classrooms open.
And we currently, I did pull some stats in the county, so this is based on capacity. The schools provide 60% of the childcare in the county and about 47% of the infant toddler.
Heidi, am I missing the number sheet?
I don't think
I don't
got
have a
that.
don't think
breakdown
we
of
have
what the ask is.
Oh, here.
I don't either. I wrote it when she said it, but yeah, it's not on mine either.
Thank you. There we go.
It's 15.
You have this?
No, I just listened what they said there.
Short, I apologize.
I do have a couple of questions, if I may, Chair.
Or
Okay. What did Head Start say? Do you have any statistics on that? Because, they're not in the county
Yeah,
as far as funding or helping with this. Is there anything there for you?
yeah, so over the last 7 years, the problem is we didn't have enough eligible families in the Frankfurt, Alberta area. And we also had a very low amount in the Benzie Central area. So we didn't have enough to fill classrooms.
Okay,
And we're able to, with our different grants and tuition-based, mix different funding sources together to provide that care.
okay. And then Representative Kofia, there's $800,000 for 3 counties for childcare. Have you accessed that at all, or?
I'm not sure which.
It says secured 3 counties to support pilots, and that Leland.
Sarah,
Oh, Leelanau County did get an early childhood.
Okay,
I think
That it might be strong.
I want to use the Strong Beginnings,
Oh,
because we do,
yes, we do.
we do at home. We do have
Okay.
girl programs.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that we're one of the 3 counties that we're getting our fair share and what the program was.
We jumped in January of 21. They said, we have this amazing.
Well, you're all
training
smiling,
program."
so,
And we jumped right in, and it is one of the most fantastic programs.
And The
Okay.
only thing that, so the biggest difference with the Strong Beginnings piece is that is a 3-year-old program, but they have to be 200% below the poverty level. to be in that.
250% of the poverty level. So it's about $60,000 for a family of 4.
So if they make anything above that,
They're not eligible.
So then those students become our tuition students, part of this toddler, 2.5.
okay. I was just wondering how we were leveraging that money in this county. I figured that you had it.
I think the conundrum that we're in, it's what we talked about before, the money's in so many different colors. And it's like this color's for this and this color's for this,
Mhm.
and that's,
Siloed.
yeah, and that's hard,
Okay.
for schools, for us, even as a county, we find ourselves in these predicaments. Why we're talking Headley, we're in these predicaments of, well,
Right,
this money's blue and this money's purple and you can't put them together.
okay.
We do that with our funding, like our GSRP classrooms, that can only be for those classrooms, Strong Beginnings, same.
And your early childhood program, the 0-3 infant toddler, do you have a waiting list? How many do you house?
We house,
What are our numbers?
I have 16 at Lake Ann right now and 14 at Homestead. Some of those are also part-time. Those are just infant toddlers. And then I have another 14 Strong Beginnings class. That's
Okay,
with waitlist.
We have
With-
13 at Frankfurt, and looking at next year, we're already at 16 that are requesting it.
okay.
So I attended the Benzie Summit, and you are one branch of people who offer the childcare. So it's the schools that offer it. We have private businesses. I see Ashley over here, and then we have home daycares. So how do as I'm deciding, as we are deciding how to dish out this money, because we do want to have an impact in the child care, how do we reconcile getting it to you and not impacting the other two branches that provide service in our community? I think that would be my question.
Yeah, and our hope is that some of this money does branch out to everybody. We have worked really hard on professional development and stuff like that, and we can really share a lot of that. We also provide a large portion of the childcare, so that's the other part of that.
I think too with that, so going back to professional development, we talked a little bit about that last week. We want to be able to collaborate with other centers as well too. I myself can do the CDA pieces. Being able to, like, if Ashley has somebody or one of the other centers that need to have their CDA credentialed, like I can come in and do those observations so then they can do their tests.
And we have like several of my staff are trained to be trainers of early literacy. We were able to, as we have some of our more seasoned staff, we have some seasoned staff and some very, very new ones. We've really worked to raise them up so that they can train others.
In-house training.
Yes, yeah.
I have talked to Josh Stoltz a little bit, and I know that thankfully you all talk to each other. There's, you know, a big study group kind of collaboration, yeah, of the different entities. So is there a general consensus that this is the best use of the ARPA money that we have to give out? Would you say there's an agreement that giving it to the school programs to provide professional development for everyone is what is the highest and best use for the money?
I felt like that's.
I felt like the group really glowed up when that was talked about.
And I would just say the professional development is will make this sustainable, right? I mean, for Ashley's crew as well, like professional development is what we have to keep staff trained so that they can be licensed to stay in these programs. We don't have licensed staff, don't have a room that's available to be open. So that is a way that we can collaborate. Frankfurt and Benzie have been doing that for years. And I think the opportunity to try to grow that and make sure that we're working with other partners, the way that we can leverage the most impact.
Amy, don't you have a program at the school too where the students are getting?
Yes.
Certified?
We started that this year. So we have a CDA class, like Belinda is saying that she can teach. We have that class offered this year at Benzie. We had 19 kids signed up and then they had to change the schedule. So we ended up with 4. But that is our plan for next year to keep that going. So a student that's in their junior year, after their senior year, they would be eligible with a CDA, able to go work in one of the many programs in Benzie County that are in need of early childhood staff.
And over the last 3 years, just a really cool stat that we're really proud of. Over the last 3 years, we have hired 9 graduates of the 2 schools, and we've provided them with free college education. We participate in every grant that we can get our hands on.
And just so I'm clear, the professional training that you'll offer to like Ashley and the home-based people, is that free training to them? Okay, sure.
That was one of the conversations we had the other day is that we want, when we want all of our students across Benzie County to have the same type of care. And I think the other thing it does is we trade kids back and forth within the county all the time. So one of our goals is to make sure whether a student starts at Frankfurt, Alberta schools or Benzie or flip-flop more than once, that they come to us with that baseline of preparation. And one of the things we're trying to do and offer to all of and this was your question, I think, Karen, about that collaboration with the whole 0 to 6 group, is it gives us the ability, we have great providers. Anyone that's in the daycare business, either private or however that works for them outside of the public schools, they're always welcome to come to that training, which I also think keeps our staff sustainable and keeps quality daycare and care in front of our students. The other piece that I'm finding, knowing what the amount of professional development that they have as a group is a lot, and that's a good thing. They are every other Fridays. Actually, to be honest with you, they probably have more professional development requirements to keep their licenses probably than K-12 teachers do. And when that happens, you have to be able to have a revenue source to continue to keep that professional development in front of people, whether it be this group or the group over here or anyone across the county. Because the whole idea of keeping sustainable care is making sure those people are always qualified and feeling confident in what they're doing. So to answer your question, that professional development would be open to anybody that would be interested, and that came out of our conversation the other day. How do we, as a county, make sure that all of our kids are cared for the best we can, whether it be private, home, or schools?
Sure.
That would be open to anybody, and we have the providers, which would be no cost to those other two entities, which I think would be really helpful. Thank you.
Once people go through the training, do they need to stay with you a certain amount of time or
Well,
how
we're
do you
talking about
handle
a couple of
that
different
for
things. So the-
retention?
Yeah, so the CDA program, which is a child development accreditation, like a teaching certificate, but for early childhood, kind of. That is through the Teach Scholarship, which is through the state of Michigan. And so that does, when they sign that contract, that does say that they need to stay with whoever they're with for a year. But it's been broken before, like it's not something that goes after them.
Enforced?
Yeah, right. But the professional development that we'd like to offer for over the next year for early childhood providers is something separate from that. It's something that we've been going through with staff that have been around for the last 3 years. That's just, when you work with little kids all day, like this staff doesn't often get breaks. They eat with their kids, they play with them, they go outside with them. They need to have a lot of things in their toolbox to be able to deal with not only the kids and their behavior, but also their own like mental well-being to be with kids. So we've found some really great professional development that we would love to share with others and also deepen our own knowledge of that.
I would think you need to deal with the parents too.
You know,
That's another aspect of the job.
I'm not that bad.
I think we should speak. Not necessarily professional development for the parents, but there is another piece that goes along with all of this programming. The amount of time, you can explain this better than I can. She sent an email to me the other day and said, we're at parent teacher conference times and we need to do A, B, and C, and D. And I think that's important that you share that because it goes back to having our staff have the professional development to go into directly into homes and have that conversation. And if you don't have those skill sets or that comfort level, that's where I think we start to lose providers because the idea of what's the qualifications and the requirements of an early childhood teacher are pretty deep. And I think if you mention what they need to do, I think that would give you a little better picture of why the PD piece is important.
Yeah, so as a program, we believe wholeheartedly 100% that families are their children's first and most important teachers. And so we believe in a partnership between home and the school, especially when kids are little, because they can't always communicate what's going on while they're at school. And so part of our programs is family participation, family education, as well as home visits and parent-teacher conferences. And so home visits look like we go into a child's home where they're most comfortable. We get to know families. Kids always show us to their bedrooms, all that kind of stuff. But really what that's about is setting goals with the family. So we know what the goals of the family is. Early childhood is very individualized because kids develop at such a different rate. And so home visits are one of the most special things that I've ever had the opportunity to be a part of as an educator. And then parent-teacher conferences, often in the K-12 world, those are like 20 minutes, you get a quick, here's how your kid's doing, here's what we can do together, that kind of thing. In early childhood, they're 45 minutes. It's, of course, here's how your child's doing, here's what we're doing, but also let's work together to work on some goals. And what does that look like at home? And what does that look like at school? So we work really hard to bridge between families and school.
Are the home visits required to be part of the program?
What?
Are the,
So we never require a family to do something that they don't want to do.
okay.
So if a family is not comfortable with that, we'll do a phone call or nothing if they prefer nothing. But we rarely have families that say no, thank you. We have really good relationships with our families.
For alternate setting.
Yeah.
Are really places to meet, but also on back.
Sure.
That a little bit too, like, that's where those relationships are built from the beginning, and if they're not that, or we meet them in the middle. And then I've had families where I've started, okay, let's meet at the park. And then by that second one, they're ready to meet in the, they're nervous just as.
I wish we had enough money to impact, to provide some sort of subsidized help for the cost of this, because it's been a long time since I had kids at home, but you know, $60 a day for a baby, that's a lot. Is there any kind of help for these parents to?
Yeah, and I will say over the last 3 years, of course, with all of the funding that we've had, we've actually provided tens of thousands of dollars in scholarships. And
Okay,
we've
so you
had.
do have those programs?
Yes, and we also, the ISD provides like a kind of a local scholarship that we can, if a family is denied DHHS childcare subsidy and they're not eligible for Strong Beginnings or Head Start or DSRP, all of our free programs, then they have like a $2,000 scholarship that we can advocate for that family. So we do really do all we can, Melinda and I both. That's a lot of what we do, is find how we can make it affordable for families.
One of the biggest amount of money is going to developmentally appropriate furniture and toys. So $15,000 for each school. What are we looking at there?
Yeah, that's for the infant toddler classrooms, because that's such a range in age from birth to 3 years old. We don't have all of the equipment that we need for all of the kids because they change in age. So for example, our infant toddler classroom this year started out with 4 babies. So we just got 4 cribs, 4, baby things, 4, and in order to offer that for 12, we need to expand that with 8 more. So that's about how much it would cost. I mean, cribs, like a home crib is, you can probably get one for like $250. For commercial cribs, they're about $550 at the lowest end.
To kind of speak to that a little bit in detail, those cribs actually have to be like on wheels and licensing approved, so that way, like a fire, catch the kids in it and get them out.
So it's for the kids as they age through that, from birth up to the 3-year-old when they're going into our preschool rooms.
One other comment, and that's a good question. I think one other piece that's always interesting is the amount of regulatory things and that will go with preschool, early childhood, that really don't go with K-12. And Amber's been wonderful enlightening me about how all this works and comes together. So I think when you go, wow, why would you need that? That's one of the reasons. But as I said, everything is always at a little bit different level and a little bit need basis in saving a private home, because there's so many rules and regs to early childhood programming.
One of the things that I appreciate hearing is that there's programs for the current kids in school to learn for a career path for them. I really would like to make sure that it continues. I was very glad to hear that you had that. Because I know when I went to high school, there's a part of the school set aside, and they had kids there every day for daycare, and high school kids were helped in the classroom with the little kids. So, I mean, I'm not sure if there's rules, regulations that have changed since then.
I know that right now our CDA class does go over and they take visits. I think it's Thursdays that they come over. And we already have, so once they turn, is it 17? And they have it, they can work in the room. So we do have some students that are actually now helping with aftercare, because that works into their schedule. So they can ride the school bus over, help at Lake Ann, and then, they can get a ride home from their parents or whatever, or they can drive themselves. But we're trying to find ways to continue to grow their interest in working with kids as well. But yes, they get to be part of Homestead Hills now that it's right on the high school campus. They get to go over there and work in the different rooms. And we're hoping to continue to grow that, because clearly there's a need. And if this allows us to get the CDA while they're still in high school, that's one less thing that they have to do later on, which I know is a big tax on the system when you are starting up a childcare program. You've got to have all your staff trained. So
That's fantastic. Any other questions?
I was gonna ask him about the 12. Is that for both schools, 12 infants?
Per classroom.
And how many employees do you have to monitor
So,
infants?
so Homestead Hills has, on a regular basis, there's 12. Have to have one staff member.
Plus somebody.
That's a
plus
heavy-
break.
Yeah, plus an extra person that can come in and do break.
Okay, just curious, that
And those children can be anywhere from 6.
Other question is what happened to Head Start? Have anything going through the schools with Head Start anymore?
No, I
Either
never-
school?
She kind of shared that, but the requirements for Head Start are really stringent as far as the money that families make. And so it was a very small number of students that were able to access that. And what we were constantly running into is that we wouldn't have enough slots for the kids that were needed. So we'd have to do a blended 3 and 4-year-old program. And that happened to Betsy Valley many years when I was there, that they were always on the bridge of, hey, we might not be able to have enough kids to have a classroom. And so that was a concern. With a tuition-based or a tuition blend, we are able to help support any family that needs childcare, not just our, families that are below poverty or in that range that they deem.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think we're ever closed to a
No.
partnership.
Yeah.
So how enrollment happens for early childhood is Melinda and I call each family. We talk with them either on virtual or on the phone. And we actually take an application for every family, which includes income and eligibility factors for all of our programs. So that way, if we had enough kids, we would approach NMCAA to look at a partnership at that. I don't know if they would say yes or anything, but we would definitely do that if we had the kids for it.
Betsy Valley does, I don't know. Betsy Valley does have a full junior class.
But wasn't completely closed.
Wasn't completely closed because
No.
they wanted to use the old Platte River School they did for 1 year.
Yes.
But I wasn't sure how it worked out.
Kind of holy now.
Even though it's a drive-through, I think.
Just about.
This question that I want to ask is, we have Whistle Stop Learning represented here with Ashley. You came to us very early in this process with I believe it was a 4-tiered proposal. And I'm hearing about the requirements of the things that you offer service to our community. I know you're a private business, but you're required to uphold the same standards that the schools daycares are, right? And so there are equipment needs that go along with what you provide as well.
Hey, Ash, can you come up
By
here?
you, yeah, I'm sorry.
I just can't hear you online if you're back there.
So I think misconception wise, there are a couple of nonprofit childcares in Benzie County. Whistle Stop being one with a pending 501c3 and a fiscal sponsor through United Way. So we've spent the last 1.5 years receiving grants from community foundations. United Way accepts it on our behalf, and we take those funds and use them for what we wrote the grant for. And we all have the same standards. We all follow the same licensing procedures. We all need the same equipment and all of that. Whistle Stop has 38 kids enrolled under the age of 3. So my little corner of Thompsonville is booming with the amount of kids that are in it. But we see the same needs as far as equipment and staffing and professional development. We have all of those same kinds of requirements that the school programs do.
So you will benefit from what's being provided, if this request was granted, your business will.
The professional development is,
The develop-
assuming we could come to days and times. I think the biggest pitfall right now is that the schools offer professional development on their half days, and my program can't close on a half day to be able to go attend those. So we would have to make sure that we could work out times and days to be able to make those professional developments, not only so their staff can make them because it would be outside of school hours, but that my staff could make them too. So I think with that collaboration, we could. But my center needs just, we have all the same needs too. We have equipment that we could use. We have things on our wish lists. I think we all do in early childhood of things that we could buy should we ever have funds to be able to utilize.
And what would be on the top of that list?
A couple more cribs. Those are
Cribs?
expensive and at the top of our list. We need a couple more like gross motor activities for our classrooms, especially when it gets cold in the winter, rainy in the summer, and we can't go outside. So we could have things inside of the classroom to work those gross motor skills for those little ones.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Just one sense that I should still. That's something can be worked out with you folks.
The professional development.
Yes.
Definitely. Her and I had talked about calendar, like. Getting hard on it as well. When that comes out, we want already done up in it. Okay. It's plural.
Yeah, and that was actually his request when we went to the 0 to 6, was that she knew in plenty of time so that they could make arrangements for that.
I don't like being in competition with private. So,
Correct.
excellent. Thank you.
Anybody else? Do we have any other input from anybody? No, that we don't need to,
So as you know, today's a study session.
right, we
so
can't make any decisions today anyways.
No, you can make recommendation forward. But today's more dialogue, like I
I
said.
don't know if I'm personally ready to make a recommendation. I want to mull some of this over.
Do we have the 42?
It's 42 and change, yeah.
Okay.
I'd definitely like to maybe see about not giving it all to the schools, but maybe a little bit over to the nonprofit.
I mean, that to me seems equitable if we wanna make an impact across the board. We have, how many children did you say are currently in the programs respectively between the two schools?
Yep, we have 6.
0 to 3.
Oh, 0 to 3.
Oh, 0 to 3. So ours wouldn't be, sorry, we have 62 total, so it would,
Okay, 62 total.
Well, what was it? I'm sorry. Under 3 is how many?
like 27.
Okay. How many more would,
So
it-
50
so if you
between
did
the
the,
two,
no,
Evan.
what's that?
50 between the two.
Oh.
And you said infants, 38, under 3.
Doesn't, right, yeah. That her numbers,
Yeah, hers is
mine is
50,
closer to 50.
Oh,
and then
sorry.
Amber's
27.
So
So 77?
roughly, yes. That was really hard math.
Yeah. You shouldn't do this.
Oh, God.
I see an opportunity for some education here.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I'd like to see it, and maybe you already gave that to us. I'm sorry, that's like a thing with the equipment you need as well. Okay. Okay.
and we'll have this on the agenda for our next full board meeting.
Yep.
For us to hopefully make a decision
Decision.
then.
Yeah, April 9th, I'll
Yep.
put it forward for a final decision.
Yeah, I
Okay.
love the professional development piece of it. The resource fair.
That's
Tell me
community.
about that a little bit.
So the resource fair actually started at Betsy Valley many, many, many years ago. Deb Frisbee was part of that. And we started it as a way to celebrate April as Month of the Young Child. So we invited community partners to come and host a table, and they could have an activity for kids to do, and then the parents could learn about the services. So we had everything from DHS to Grow Benzie to WIC to anything you could think of. The police were there, all kinds of different resources, just to let parents and families know these are the things that you can access here in our community. After that first year, I think it started at like 14 vendors came. We grew to a capacity over 30 that we ran out of space for hosting it at Betsy Valley indoors. Then COVID occurred, and then I got a new job. And then I think Sarah May and the 0 to 6 work group picked it up
Okay.
and hosted it. And then this year, Amber and Melinda are working on with the 0 to 6 to host it at Homestead Hills.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
One more question, if you don't mind. Maybe it's just me. But would you guys be willing to come back and give us a report after? Depending on how it works out, to just keep us informed.
We love to share what we're doing, we're proud of what we do, so we
We'd appreciate it. So,
Maybe
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and you could also invite them to come to the booth and they could see, and we did an observation at Homestead Hills when it was designed so that parents or other people could observe the space. And then we have that opportunity at Lake Ann as well. So.
You can see my kid running around like a wild person.
You got him marked or?
Yeah, he's the redhead. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for what you
Thank
do.
you,
It's
thank
hugely
you.
needed in our community. Means a lot.
Thank you. We have one left.
He's
He's riding a horse or what?
What?
We have one thing left on our agenda. Well, kind of. The next Networks Northwest Master Plan Review and Discussion.
They're not here yet.
What time were they supposed to have been here?
I told them between 2 and 2:30.
Be here at 2:30.
I'm guessing they should be here soon.
Okay, is there anything? Nothing else on the agenda for us to really talk about? Do we want to take a 10-minute recess?
I know
Nope.
Deb Frisbee's here.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I-
she wants to add. You wanna speak?
Oh,
Prepared. I know Dee Dee
So ready,
told me
go.
that Katie said that I should attend. So my childcare would look much, much different than what was just proposed here. But because we have a kinship pilot program or kinship, we're starting to try to get a kinship pilot program here. And the only way that we can find these families is through holding events because there's no data kept on the families. So we're holding an event in honor of Mother's Day for the kinship providers who have stepped up to the plate to take care of their children, both in the formal system and in the informal system through guardianships with the court. So we're gonna hold an appreciation dinner with our legislators, with Judge Mead, and with all of our agencies. Normally, I would have a keynote speaker, but because we want to collaborate with everybody in Benzie County who offers services to these families, we want them to be there, like this expo that was just talked about, in order to get the people all in one place to tell these families, these are the resources we have for you. Like MDHHS, a lot of our families, only 5% of people who are eligible because they are kinship families are eligible for TANF, which is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. Only 5% of the families in Michigan who are eligible for it out of over 54,000 children don't know about it until they hear it from somebody with lived experience or somebody who's working in their community. It doesn't get told to them at the court. It doesn't get told to them from CPS. If they create a safety plan and say, well, we're not removing the children, but we want to give the children to someone where they'll be safe. Grandpa and grandma, aunts, uncles, siblings. There's all different forms of families who are taking care of children who aren't theirs. When I asked Kim about, I worked with Kim and Judge Mead before because I've done this and asked them to send out the invitations. And so this year I went to Kim and said, how many invitations do I have to make for this event? And she said, we have 46 cases. That's a lot for this community. And these are people that don't know the resources because I don't know where they are to tell them. And so again, I'm going back to why we're creating events. So this event is going to be held on May 3rd. It's going to be at the Congregational Church. We're going to have a dinner. We're going to have childcare. I'm working with Nancy Kita because she has that program where she's trying to work with parents and children to reunify. We don't think we'll have the biological parents at this event, but she said she thought her volunteers would be willing to do the childcare while the adults are having dinner, which is beautiful because a lot of times these parents that are raising these children don't get a break from them. So it would be a small amount of money. Because I would like to, I mean, Nancy's group maybe would only need some gift cards just because they wanted to volunteer, but like an honorary gift or something for them. But I want to do more of these events because once I touch base with these people here, I want to build a relationship with them. And because that is also going to help me go back to legislators and say, this is the voice of these people. I want to start holding listening circles or having forums. We've done forums before with our legislators and just had the parents with the lived experience sharing some of their stories. I was just in a support group. I don't hold in-person support groups anymore. We're doing them virtually. But I was in my support group meeting last week and you were talking about early education here. And these two grandparents lived in Holland. They both work, but they don't meet the standards. They're above the pay scale to get their children into any of these daycare programs. And so they have to pay out of pocket. And it's really cutting into their paychecks. And so, you know, those are little things that are so complex about the kinship families who are outside of the formal child welfare system that nobody really knows about. And I'm saying these people stepped up to the plate to take care of these children. We don't know if the parents will ever be reunified with them because there is no program for that, for them, for reunification. So they're stepping up to the plate and it's costing them so much money, but we're saving the state so much money by stepping up to the plate and saying, yes, we'll take these children into our home when CPS says we have to find a safe place for them. So I know you've heard me be on the bandwagon about this before, but it's a super complex issue. And so I would appreciate any little bit of money that we could get to hold those events with those families and be able to offer childcare for them to have a break.
Questions? Comments?
I think I've heard this before, years ago. I don't see a whole lot of changes. Unless the court system decides to pay grandparents and folks that are stepping up to take care of these kids. Only other concern is a government entity. I don't know that we can commit money, something like this. Doesn't benefit, it only benefits a small group. Trying to be a pessimist. Guess we'd have to do some research. I wish the courts would step up and help grandparents.
I think it's it'll come through legislation. So, I mean, I don't think that the state can afford to give, 50,000. I mean, that's an underestimated number because nobody keeps data on it. But, I think that, we're making headway. I think that there are going to be changes, but they're just those little things, letting people know about TANF. It's $158 a month for one child, doesn't double with two, but at least if this grandparent had known about that, that would offset what she has to pay for childcare. So it's just getting the word out to families who don't know what their resources are.
And a lot of the dilemma was, I know from working with you, Deb, that we needed statistics.
Right.
And
Right.
to get the money and to get the system, and there aren't statistics.
So that's what we're working on and with
Right.
MDHHS too. Like how many did you divert away from
Right.
formal foster care? Because we call creating a safety plan is really a diversion from formal foster care. And they did it.
And this can be, and that's another area that we don't have the link in the statistics about kinship care and childcare. How are they relating, to the state so we can get information on that. But so what would help you? So you're saying the type of things might be
Childcare while we hold events.
childcare while.
I mean, we have a fiduciary. We have Grow Benzie
Mhm.
as a fiduciary. But that's what it would be. That I can think of if we fit into the childcare
Right.
category.
Mm-hmm. For the evening event
And
or
do
the
these things
various.
come available every year?
No, this is
just
the
one-time
ARPA.
shot, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's
that's
part
I
of
right.
wish I had more for you. But
Have you reached out to our state reps and stuff to maybe have a forum even here? bring folks in, sit down and talk. And maybe that's a way to start,
Mhm.
you know, I mean,
So you have done this?
We have had
Okay.
those, yes.
have they
Yes.
been successful
Yeah.
in your opinion?
Oh, on our forums?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I mean, we had two bills that were, and I want to say whenever Governor Whitmer went into office. So we had two bills. And one was for a kinship advisory council and one was for a kinship navigator program. That were two bills that the Michigan Kinship Care Coalition, which I'm on the steering team of, created with a legislator, and they flew through the House and the Senate unanimously. And then they got to the governors, they were tie-barred together. They got to the governors and there was one piece of language in one of them that wanted some consent to oversight. And the governor didn't believe that with her executive privilege that there needed to be any oversight, so they were vetoed. And so the department then knew it was necessary to have them. So they developed them, but they're inside of the department. Do you know how slow the department moves? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The Kinship Council's been meeting for 3 years and I can't tell you what progress we've made. And I have people on the steering committee of the Kinship Council or coalition that are on that. And so, and we're leery of becoming a 501c because then we can't lobby like we're lobbying right now. So
I think the
Yeah.
grassroots lobbying like you're doing would resonate a little better. I can't believe doesn't she have a
But-
line item veto power?
So because they were tie-barred, they both went down. But, you know, they're inside of the department now and that wheels move slow.
I've never heard it put the way that you said that, like you're saving the state money. I mean, I think one side of the argument is your family. These people are family and that's what families are supposed to do for each other. You're the safety net, so when things fall apart over here, you pick up the slack. But I can see what you're saying but for these relatives, these kids would be in the system. And so there's a cost savings to the state. It's a really complex conversation. It really is.
It is.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe, I thank you for the offer to hold a forum here because, depending on the 46 cases of the people that we have at the event there, we'll mention that we would like to have forums and, once I build relationships with these 46 cases,
Is that 46 in Benzie or
there'll be
46?
more
Benzie
power
and-
in them numbers with John
That's the
Roth,
idea.
Representative Roth and Representative Coffey and, Senator
Senator
Bumstead.
Yeah.
So-
Bring them all.
And doesn't that help with the data, knowing that you have 46? I mean, when the court says, yes, you as a relative can take the child, aren't they assigned an attorney ad litem? Not always. I don't know that much about it. I
In
just know,
the formal child welfare system, they are, but they are not.
but
in-
they are not.
and-
with-
And the sad part of it is it's a knee-jerk reaction for these families because they're told by CPS and as parents, because I was one of them, as parents, we know things are going haywire and they're not really good. But when CPS tells you that we would like you to take the children, we're going to create a safety plan. And then they tell them, and they're not really supposed to, but it happens all the time. They tell them it would be a good idea to go get a full guardianship. Because then if the parents wanted to use the children as a tool against grandpa and grandma or auntie and uncle, they could come anytime and say, I want my kids back.
Mhm.
And then the fact that once they get into grandparents' homes, they're saving the state money because everything's got to be switched over. And these parents don't know that Medicaid's got to be switched over, which would come with TANF, but they're not being told any of this. So it's a knee jerk. Yes, I want to protect my grandchildren. Yes, I will take them into my home, but they have no idea what they just signed up for.
Gotcha.
And they trust that the state is telling them to go to get a full guardianship, and that's a protection piece. But it really is
It's more
not
an
to their
education.
advantage to do that. Nor would you say, well, I'm not gonna take the kids, we'll just have to wait for them to go into foster care. Because they don't know if they'll be considered for foster care. So. Anyhow, I think working with the Human Service Collaborative, I have a work group meeting at 3 o'clock today. So like we have boilerplate language that we're working with a legislative caucus to try to start a pilot program. And with David Burns from Manistee and myself here in Benzie, we feel like this would be a great place to start a pilot program. And what that looks like right now in my mind is that we have someone at the court who would be a licensed social worker, who would be able, when someone comes in to sign up for a full guardianship, they give them everything they need to know to do that.
Here's exactly what you're
So
doing.
anyhow, that's my goal.
You have a question for,
I won't take up any more of your time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
so can I adjourn the amendment?
No,
No.
Zach's here.
I hope, I'm gonna go home. I'm tired. My leg hurts.
Oh. Nothing has changed in a lot of years.
All right, we ready to move on? Anybody need a break?
Well, quick question while we're still on ARPA and childcare. What exactly do you want from me for April 9th?
I would like
I
to
know
see,
everyone was writing notes and so what exactly do you need me to prepare for April 9th or
I'm
just
not,
have it as an
so-
agenda item?
I'd like, well,
I'm not fond of
We asked-
funding a resource fair. I don't know about that.
Mhm.
and I think Ashley said she would provide some detailed stuff of what she needs.
Yeah, Whistle
the-
Stop is giving 1/3 of the 0 to 3 care in our county to children. She's got 1/3 of the numbers.
I will also note that she has just received many thousands of dollars in grants in the
Oh, really?
last 6 to 8 months.
But she wrote those grants, right? So should we punish her by not helping
No,
her as
but
well?
but I will say that out of the grant funding for early childhood, she's received the bulk of it. And she did note there was more than one nonprofit childcare agency outside of her and this, and she's not even nonprofit at this point, but there is another one. I'm just saying to.
Who's the other one?
But they
I
haven't
don't
come
know
in
who it
here.
is,
Oh,
but I'm just saying to think about that too.
And I like,
Not saying to
When
not
we
give
asked-
to
but
her.
when we
not
asked the
saying to not
school,
give
is
to her.
everybody on board with this? She was shaking her head, no. That's why I'm like, go up there and say something. Well, and the school said, yeah, everybody's on board, but she's like, no, not everybody. So
It was her idea to ask for the professional development, I will say. But for her to say she's not on board, that was her idea and the school embraced it.
no, it wasn't just that. It was the other
Okay.
piece that they were saying as well. I'm sure that
well, the professional
Professional.
development, she may be on board, but the school's saying, yep, we're gonna do it during these hours. And she's like, well, I can't do those hours because I gotta be here. I mean,
They said they would accommodate, but.
They did.
see.
They also said they'd accommodate, and in the meeting on Friday, there was never an issue about schedules.
well,
That was new today as well.
I do know that schools like to do their professional development on their half.
Yeah.
Or kids no days. I mean, and I can see where.
Yeah.
She can't close her shop up because the
Right.
schools have a half a day.
Mhm.
I mean,
yeah, I'd like to just see her, what she needs as well. That's,
But are we opening the door? There's another nonprofit out there.
I mean, we've
We
been
only have
asking,
X amount of
we've,
dollars.
we've been asking for a long time and there's only
We've been talking
two-
ARPA and childcare for
Right.
over 2 years,
there's only two
and
people.
that was part of my direction on Friday was we're looking for shovel ready. It's been 2 years.
Mm.
And
We've got two.
We're running out of time.
nobody, we're running out of time. We've been talking to ARPA and specifically the childcare end of it for it, I mean, since before you were on the commission, Karen. And so, come on.
yeah, and I know that I mean, I recall her,
think we-
she was one of the first ones
Yeah.
here.
She was,
When we were
and
having this conversation, and she did, I know that her ask had different layers to it.
yes,
And
she
you know.
wanted her mortgage paid off.
I know, and that was
She
one we could
wanted
not
a
consider.
new furnace.
Couldn't do that.
She wanted money for food. I think it was 3.
Was it 3?
Mm-hmm. She wanted food programming money,
And some
Which-
subsidies.
which the
people who can
state already
afford it.
provides that.
And the other one was subsidies,
For
the
tuition.
tuition.
Oh, yeah. Which so when we originally talked about it and she had came forward, you guys talked about how you don't want to duplicate efforts. So the state gives money for food for the kids.
Mhm.
There's subsidies, which we just learned about today, for the kids,
Mhm.
for scholarships. So that was part of when she initially came and we talked was,
Well,
you
those
didn't want to
subsidies, I think
duplicate
that was what
efforts.
the school has for their kids.
No, it's through like Strong Beginnings is everybody. GSRP, she can participate in GSRP. So it's not just like schools.
Okay.
It's programs. And then the DHS programming, as well as the $2,000 scholarship that's through the ISD. That's all kids and all providers. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'd like
when
to
we
make a
originally
decision
talked
at our
about it,
next one about it and be done with it, but I'd like to see
yes.
not all go to win and see.
Yeah, I mean, we have the opportunity to impact either 77 kids or 115.
Yeah.
And I think there's a way to do it
Mhm.
where we walk away saying the money was used in the highest and best way. We just have to figure out what that is and what's equitable. I mean, what's fair.
Okay. I
Um,
can,
I mean, I think we all agree that we want the remainder of money to go to impact childcare, right? It's the
Correct.
only prong that we haven't
Have
really,
not addressed.
it's the only box we haven't checked that we really wanted, we're told was important.
And Ashley offers something that I feel the school doesn't. Kids can stay longer evening.
I don't know her hours. I
I
don't,
don't know her hours, but I don't think she shuts down at 4 o'clock,
neither does the school.
but that's when you had to pick them up.
Well, they have aftercare, so 5 o'clock, 7 to
5.
5. Yeah.
I guess I'd have to find out, but
The thing about the school was the sustainability when they're doing the investing in the childcare training, and that was open. So I think that is a big thing.
Yeah, I
That's
wouldn't
huge.
want to impact that number. That seems like, okay, I'm questioning the resource fair a little bit, to Tim's point.
Mhm.
And I just think that this portion could be divvied up a little bit differently.
So did Ashley say 38 kids, right?
It's at 38.
I have.
So I think what I'll do to make it basic is I'll do like a math equation. Does that make sense? Like just as a basic start, I'll just
I
say
don't
like
wanna-
based on the math.
Well,
Yeah, I don't think I would feel comfortable just writing a check. I mean,
No,
if
no,
the
no.
county write a check, we would want to know from her,
Accountability.
what gaps do you need filled in
Mhm.
equipment or resources or the things that, and again, I mean, looking at this, the professional development, everybody agrees is a good thing. And like Jeff said, across the board provides a standard of care.
Mhm.
And County
kids.
sustainability.
Yeah,
And
I think that is
sustainability,
like
yeah.
a no-brainer, really.
Right, so I don't think we want to adjust that number, but
Correct.
there's $32,000 left that could be portioned up differently for the right things.
Mhm.
That's my thought.
I think we're in agreement on that.
Mhm.
Please. Good with that, Gary?
I'm still kind of looking at the infants. Looking 12 each school. Right? They have that many. I'm just
Homestead
curious
has
as to what- how
14
many
in their,
Ashley,
so she's never given me that number.
she won't give you.
She
has-
only gives me the 0 to 3 number. So I don't know what that breakdown, I just don't know what that breakdown is.
Don't they have a special program for the 3-year-olds?
Strong Beginnings, but you have to qualify. They're all income-based programs. So if you don't qualify, your tuition, just straight tuition.
And isn't the state considering legislation that's mandatory preschool, like
4-year-old across the board, yeah.
across the board, right?
Mhm. So then you're just down to under 4
Go
to
to
the
3.
babes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
This is election year, that can all change in 6 months.
And then wait 2 years
Yeah.
before it's implemented.
Right.
Right?
So they don't consider the state wants as a possibly actually going through. Be nice. I don't know.
Well, one thing, if it's equipment or cribs and gross motor skill toys and things that they need, that's something that once they get it, it's that's equipment.
They have it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have it. So that would be a good thing to invest in.
So.
And this, we all agree on
Professional
that, the training for sustainability on that.
So I'll follow up with Ashley to get a list of her equipment wishes. I'll ask the other two ladies too to just give me a list. I mean, they talked about the cribs. I
Yeah,
think the
they did.
consensus was cribs,
Mhm.
but then other stuff. And then, based on the other numbers and what we have left, and then you guys could decide how you want to divvy that up or what have you.
$500 a crib. Get rid of some.
No, and I mean,
Yeah,
you know, the
they're
idea
special.
of, are there other people providing childcare that could, well, you know, like you say, we've cast the net for how long now?
Right.
And we have to
Right.
respond to the
Right.
people who have taken advantage of that.
Yeah,
That's
I
all we can
mean,
do. I mean,
over 2 years, we've been
Right.
talking ARPA and childcare. Between the survey, the newspapers covered childcare and the ARPA dollars. I mean, I think the word's been out there. So, and we're on
Yeah,
a timeline.
let's get the money working.
Perfect. Okay.
Ready to move
I-
on?
Yep.
Brings us to Networks Northwest. You got 10 minutes.
And keep your yellow stickies in your pocket.
We didn't bring any.
I didn't bring any. No, no, we're gonna do this differently. You guys did a really bad job last time. No, kidding. You guys are great. So in reviewing what we're trying to get done with this, I figured it would be more helpful for Networks Northwest to write the subject matter addendums behind the scenes, bring them to you for approval, and then what we would really want to focus on are your goals and objectives.
What I heard is what we sucked at last time.
No. No, so what we did last time was really useful. We're going to incorporate those into the goals and objectives. So I'm going to review those with you today, what we did last time. And then, you know, instead of just focusing really heavily on, say, age-related issues with the board, we'll go behind the scenes and actually contact the area agency on aging. We'll talk to the school superintendent. And then we'll bring that information to you, and then you say, okay, how can we help with that? That information's good, or we might need more clarification on this, if you could get that. So, I think that will probably be more useful for you. And then, with that, if you review the 2017 plan, it's a pretty incredible list of goals and objectives. They're spread out throughout the plan, but I counted 68. So, and some of them are written a little ambiguously. So just in terms of organizing the board and the commissions and the groups that you work closely with, I figured it would be more useful to spend 3 meetings going into those goals and objectives, how they're written, and figuring out, is this something we want to do in 5 years? So putting a timeline on it, putting a responsible party to it, and then doing a priority of we need to tackle this first. We want to get this done in 5 years. And these are the 3 groups that have to work on it. This person's in charge, and these 2 are gonna be people that need to be consulted on that.
I don't like naming a specific person, but
So
maybe
not-
a title.
Right, not a person, but like the Recreation Commission. You know, or the Road Commission, something like that. Although if you want to name names,
I think Art Jeanette be the.
I think so.
Second that.
They tend to get it done faster when they're.
And Bob.
And Bob.
So I'm gonna pass out a couple of things, and then I just have here, well, actually, I'll pass it out first, so you know what I'm talking about. But the first thing I'm passing out, I'll take one and pass it on. This is what we talked about last time, so you'll see 4 quadrants of sticky notes, so it's been typed out. If you see any errors on there, or if I interpret anything incorrectly, just let me know next time.
You should have just made a paper airplane.
Tried. Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
I get to keep the leftovers.
Just send them away.
I'll sell them back.
Just a minute, Gary, we got some more coming.
Oh, the other way.
If they're
Oh, they're stapled.
stapled.
Yeah.
I need the big ones.
Nine.
There's another one, Gary.
One more spare. Oh geez, there's another one. Oh, we're done by now.
We're getting close.
All right, so these are broken into, just so that we can digest them over the course of a couple meetings, 5 different groups. The way the plan's laid out is it goes by topic area, and then for each of those topic areas, there's 3 or 4 goals associated with that information that was provided. So what we'll do with the addendum, I think it's good to keep, so there's 2 different ways to look at goals and objectives. One way, which is how your plan's currently written, is that it's really expansive. So any funding that you might be going for, or any initiative you might be trying to kick off, it is supported by your master plan. The way that I typically do goals and objectives, and what I think we want to work towards, now that you've had these plans in place since it was needed to be updated, and I think this was a 2017 plan. What we want to do is get more specific. So actually getting towards how would we actually implement some of these things. So for instance, support waterway trail systems and land water infrastructure. Is that something that we're already doing? If so, how? Who do we need to partner with to get that done, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we're going to work towards over the next few meetings. And so what you'll have by the end of this is a set of, let's say, 10 to 15 goals. Usually with the townships I work with, I give them like, let's get these 5 things done in the next 5 years. Because, you're a small community, you don't have many resources. At the county level, I think you guys can obviously handle more. You have more resources, you have more people you're working with. So by the end of this, this process, I'd like to see, 10 to 15 goals that you say, okay, this is what we want to prioritize for the next 5 to 10 years. This is who we're working with. This is who's responsible. And this is kind of 3 action steps to get us started. Does that make sense? Any questions before we get into this? Okay, so let's start with this, these beige, first 14 or so goals. And, working independently, and then we'll report out to get consensus. Just go through and do the first 3 check boxes. So it's really 2 check boxes. So has this been accomplished, or is it no longer relevant? Put a D if it's been done, or if you're currently working on it. Put an I if, we said this in 2017 was important, but let's not do it anymore. And then in those next 2 check boxes, say if this is a 5-year goal or a 10-year goal. In other words, is this short term or is this long term?
How far do you want us to go down?
Just those beige ones, so the end of
All of
non-motorized
them,
trails.
all 12?
Yeah.
Want to say continue, it implies that we're already doing it anyway.
Yep. So I would, you can leave those blank or put a D for done. Yeah, a lot of them are ongoing, obviously.
I don't like it when he comes here, he gives us homework to do or stuff.
I know, right?
Wasn't that good in school, so I don't know.
Wait till the quiz at the end.
If you better wait, with it. Yeah, whatever. Roger Prater, right?
Probably.
I want to know when the cruise ships are gonna start coming in.
Me too.
That was Roger.
Put an I there.
He wanted to get the railroad going again, do it.
I think that could, something that could happen in the next 10 years.
What?
Cruise ship.
They have one in Travis? Yeah, they do.
Supposed to, yeah.
They do.
Right.
We're
You'll
just,
have to guard that this summer. As the parkway's closed. Let them.
all the tourists coming off the boat.
Yeah, super. Let's bring more. No, let's have the Blue Angels come twice too, because, you know, that's great.
Well, the airport guy's pretty upset about that.
I hope they end up canceling it.
Is it inconvenience to you?
Yes.
We lost somebody, you have to wait a minute.
That's fine. Well, you know, when Ronner comes back, we'll continue, but for, take a second here. Reflect on this list that we just went through, these down to non-motorized trails. And think about, are there any that the county is not currently doing or could improve on that you should prioritize? You would put as a high priority over the next 5 years?
And you want us just to annotate that somewhere?
Just put a star on it. Yeah.
I don't say, cruise ships. I'm gonna punch you in the face. So we assigned out all to Rhonda, so we're done. She has to finish now.
Yeah. You're on that committee with Bob and Art.
And then I'm doing.
You gotta
we're
put a
doing
star
this
next to
too.
your priority,
Star next to.
Next to what?
The priority.
your priority.
Anything that the county, yeah,
okay.
anything that you think the county should really prioritize that you're
Okay.
either not doing or you need to improve on.
If you don't think any of them are a priority on that. part
That's
of the
okay.
list.
That's okay. Because we're gonna do this for each group,
You're
so.
fired.
Like roads and highways, isn't that the responsibility of the road commission who should have their own?
That whole,
strategic
that
plan?
whole
Then we have
section is
private
road.
roads, we have.
Yeah, but even then,
So-
we're not played into that. It's
Yep.
all road commission. That's why I put MC,
MC,
meaning we're consulting, but we're not part of that process.
I just left it blank, because it's road
But
commission.
you already skipped ahead.
How many
I can-
stars can we have for priorities?
Just one, right?
Just
As
one?
many as you, whatever you think you should prioritize. Yeah,
I have
just one.
three.
Our stars.
Three.
You can have 0 to 12.
I'm gonna fall asleep if I don't.
Okay.
All right. And I don't know what minimize life cycle costs, follow an affordable
commission.
investment means.
Again, road commission.
Road commission.
Oh, that's
You
road
look at-
commission? Minimize life, oh, okay, so that's the road commission.
Big question. A real question.
I don't know how that really plays into anything.
All right, so just to build some consensus here, does anyone volunteer to be the person that we compare our other answers to?
Oh,
Who thinks they're right?
You're gonna hate mine, because I don't really, yeah, I'll go first, but.
Sure,
I
go
don't
ahead.
think you
So,
should compare it to
so,
mine.
so in that first, or in that first column, this goal has already been accomplished or is no longer relevant. What did you have for each one?
Well, so I'm probably the only person that feels this way, but affordable housing, I don't think there is such a thing. I don't think we can do anything about affordable housing. Nobody helped me afford my house. I got 2 jobs. And I think affordable housing will become available when people can make money building affordable houses. So I don't know what we as a county can do to help with affordable housing.
Okay,
So that's my first one. Second one. work
can
with
we
what-
respond to your first
Oh,
one? Are we gonna go
sure.
down the?
Oh,
you go-
no.
How do you want this?
Yeah,
Rob?
what, I just thought you wanted me to go down my list.
Your guiding us.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what the consensus is. So let's start with.
I told you I'd be
let's
alone on that
not
one.
go with Evan.
Let's start with those first two. Let's start with affordable housing in general.
Okay,
Is
so
this
we
something
do-
that you're currently working on with partnerships, Housing to Worth,
Yes.
someone like
Yes,
that?
we do have we have partnerships with Habitat for Humanity, we have partnerships with Homestretch, we have partnerships with the Frankfurt Land Bank. These are ongoing partnerships, especially with our county land bank who offers properties that these agencies utilize to create affordable housing.
We're also working with Housing North on
Yes.
various levels as well.
Oh,
to
you're
improve
saying
housing.
that's done.
So that,
I
it's
think
ongoing.
it's kind of, I mean.
It's ongoing, but I
Yeah.
think there's more to get. There's more to do. I mean, you bring in the brownfield piece. We really haven't even started to tip the iceberg with brownfield and housing.
Right.
You know, so far we're focused on pilots and those sorts. There's so much more to do.
But we are constantly, the land bank is always looking, like when this next batch of foreclosures come from, the land bank wouldn't take a property that's marketable. But what the land bank will do is take properties that have issues, fix the issues, and then sell them
For
very,
So
Cheap.
for this one, I put, it could be started or accomplished.
say that again?
The next column over. I made it so it was, could be started or accomplished within 5.
Yeah.
Oh,
check
and
box
this is
in this-
ongoing. This is a task that we'll have in perpetuity.
This
I
is
think.
long term.
It's long term, yeah. It's cyclical.
So the word started is included.
Yes, it's definitely started.
But the
something-
goal is consider offering incentives.
Oh.
So considering wouldn't be ongoing. Once we found our bailiwick of incentives, then it's the goal is accomplished, right?
Until the next property is picked up. I mean,
I don't know how we'll ever finish or be done. I put down done, but the long-term.
Ongoing.
I put
Is it?
ongoing. We need an O in there.
Well, maybe the
Ongoing.
consider offering incentives is done.
So
Maybe, because we're running out of.
But then there's the word or. There's the ambiguity you're talking about.
yeah, yep. Let's start this way.
Limbo.
I want to know which ones you thought were priorities. So which ones you put a star next to.
I
So let me-
were,
yeah.
because thinking from the county level.
Mhm.
We need to look at work with local government, to explore options for the infrastructure. Infrastructure is countywide.
Okay.
That was one of my starred ones too.
Okay.
Plus
Where
the
at?
one above it, the second one.
The second one, Evan.
That's infrastructure and that's our broadband, that's our Area 31 sewer, that's natural gas,
Again,
that's all the things,
infrastructure,
right?
yeah.
And then my third star was under air and water support waterway trail systems and land and water infrastructure. And I mean, to expand that a little more is protection of our land and water. Drew, I think clarified, am I getting in the weeds here?
No, you're good.
We need to call squirrel. When people get off in the weeds, we can call squirrel. So protective clarification of our zoning, maybe, because we don't have county planning. I think that, protection of the land and water through clear zoning efforts and maybe, we don't have zoning, but we can be a facilitator of, I mean, that's what that new committee is working to do, try and have uniform rules.
What's the new committee?
It's
Well,
the what?
we're trying to decide on our name.
Oh.
The
Oh.
Watershed Coalition
Yeah.
right
Very
now, but
important.
I
Yeah.
think it might end up being the land and water use stewardship. I don't know. I can't think of it. It's through the Land Conservancy.
And so you said you had 3 stars. What was the other one?
It was the first one, the housing.
Oh, the first one,
Continuing.
the first one, the,
Yeah,
so
first,
those two
second.
and then the water?
Yeah.
Okay.
And mine were infrastructure, if it had infrastructure in it. So the waterways
Oh, okay. Yep.
for broad county infrastructure, it has to be somehow, you gotta have a map for everything. I know, Gary, that sounds like big government, but some things you have to coordinate with people.
I missed it. What'd she say?
Oh, I just.
I just had a star on the
Infrastructure.
only one, and it was to support the waterway trail systems and land water infrastructure.
Okay.
Tim?
Infrastructure.
You agreed on one.
Those are the two.
Look at your answer.
Hey, you're.
Yeah.
I'm up.
Yeah.
The only thing I had a priority was the work with local governments and other stakeholders to explore options for enhancing or expanding infrastructure in appropriate areas. That was my only priority.
Okay. Gary?
Which one you think?
I had just the non-motorized trails development. That's biased.
So both of those under non-motorized trails?
Yeah,
Okay. The convene stakeholders and the incorporate sidewalks?
kinda have a hard time with that one. I had to cross that one off.
So just the convene stakeholder?
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, I'm all in favor of the Betsy Valley Trail and the asphalt part of that and getting the use there, but I guess I'm not sure where this is all going here. Some of this stuff I wrote down is done because we're doing it.
Yeah, I left mine
And-
blank because so many.
Yeah, I mean,
process.
but we're not done because most
But I know-
everything we're looking at is a long-term project.
Well, and I think that community walkability, whether it be in Thompsonville or the top of the hill in Benzonia, if it's in your master plan, that's how you get grants for it if they come around. So entities that, and it's hard because we're fragmented. I mean, we are the county, but it would be these individual smaller entities that would be going for grants to get that done. So does it matter if it's in our master plan or
Well,
does it need to be
so
in theirs?
there were two sets of goals in the plan. There was what can the county do and what can the local jurisdictions do? So I only put what can the county do in here.
Okay,
But you're right, some of these are only gonna be. The township would have to be the lead on it and the county would be like a must inform or a must consult on that responsibility chart. But you wouldn't be the lead on that.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially, big picture, what I'm trying to figure out here is, number one, what do you want to prioritize? Number two, what are you going to be, where's the county going to be the primary responsibility? So there might be some things that the townships want to get done where, they have to consult you, maybe because they don't have a grant writer or they need help with something, or you have resources that they don't. So I'm trying to figure out what you can take primary responsibility on and what you really want to work towards the next 5 years.
So housing is not the county's responsibility, but we have tools by which housing can be created. So
Yeah.
I don't know how you reconcile. that.
Right, because the housing thing.
It's not our job
It's
to
a bunch
create
of different
housing.
like nonprofits
Right,
and the
right.
land bank and Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. But if that's a high priority for you, then it's something, maybe you're not the primary responsibility on it, but it's something that you want to remain
But
active in.
if the land bank is working well, it's something we're contributing to
Mhm.
consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the potential for what, 4 houses going up right now because of the land bank?
Something like that.
So, I mean, it's a lot of it is nuanced.
Yep. Yeah, and and a lot of these are written very.
Yeah.
You can interpret them many ways. I'm just trying to make it as clear as possible what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to adjust to these because I know it's a lot right in front. It's 68 goals and objectives. So what I'm trying to figure out is how to pare these down to like 10 to 15 that you really, some of these are ongoing. Let's keep doing that. But let's find 10 to 15 where it's like, we're not putting as much effort into that as we could be, or that's something we haven't even started yet. And it's something that we would be the primary responsibility on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can take the roads and highways right out of there.
Yeah, that whole
The
section,
road commission.
yeah, that's,
We don't even have to consult on that.
Yep. So that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. It's like, yep, this whole section, that's road commission. This whole section, those are our nonprofit partners in housing.
I can really state we could probably take the support ferry services
Yeah.
and other water
That's
transportation.
Yeah.
City of Frankfurt.
And I don't think we're
Port
gonna really
facilities
accommodate
and-
cruise ships. You would
Okay.
like to joke that we will, but I don't think we're going.
And I think that where you're coming from is the master plan that was written in 2017. It was a very large group effort. And it was very wordy. It was very wordy. And I mean, I think they had the best intentions, but it was hard to follow, like you say. I mean, this is where you got all this from, right?
Yep.
Am I saying what you want to say? But it's, yeah, I get it. It
I
needs
mean,
to
when
be-
you're first updating your plan, it's like, let's just put everything that we could ever want to accomplish in there. And then, because you never know what grant's gonna come out for it.
Okay.
But then, 7 years later, when you're revisiting that plan, it's like, what have we gotten done? What do we want to focus on for the next 5 years? Let's just focus on that. If we can't have a huge impact on housing and it's going to be outside parties that are really going to handle that.
No.
Let's not think about that. Let's think about what we control.
But we can have on housing, air and water transportation, yeah, support waterway trail systems, land water infrastructure. I mean, I
Yeah,
think we've got rivers, we've got,
And that's one that the county is going to have to be a primary responsibility because they cross township
Correct.
boundaries, right? So,
yeah, non-motorized trails is a good one. Everybody agrees, right, Gary?
Yeah.
Transit, that's a Benzie bus. I mean, they handle all that. We as a county,
Well,
yes,
that's in
no?
the blue anyways, right?
Oh,
yeah.
we're not going through the whole
But
thing.
the correct, the sidewalks and bike lanes, isn't that up to MDOT? I mean, we don't have any say in.
If
where
it's a state
White-
road, yeah. If it's a county road, you can make it so that if they're, you know,
Goodness,
for
right.
example, if
Kind
they're
of
expanding the
road
shoulder, they
commission,
have, to right,
yeah.
right, with the road commission, if they're expanding the road, then they have to put in a
Yeah,
five.
so I don't,
Totally taking out road
Yeah.
commission.
I think so.
And so we'll leave these in the plan. This is gonna be an addendum. We'll leave them in because if the road commission goes for a grant or something, you want this to be in your plan so that they can get it. But what I'm talking about are just things that you as the board or the county government with its various departments can accomplish. Or you want to get started in the next 5 years.
I have a question for you on the seasonal housing. We talking short-term rentals? What are we talking here?
Overnight population,
where's that?
so there was a study
No, I saw.
that's in the,
Way down.
in.
Oh, I see it. Sorry.
That's one that's been done. There was a seasonal population study that came out last year. It's on the Networks Northwest website if you're interested in looking at it. So you can see the population change month to month for full-time population, part-time population, and overnight population, which is then further broken down into short-term rentals and like traditional overnight, like hotels, B&Bs. So you can see that on Networks Northwest website.
I just
But
don't
that's
like,
not really county oversight on that here. That's
Right.
the city, the townships, they're deciding and enforcing.
I mean, their
Yeah.
planning commissions as to where they're.
So that would not really be, right?
Um,
Or
no,
do
you're not gonna have,
So we
you know,
can
if
take
you don't have
that one out.
zoning, then you're not gonna,
We don't
control
have
that.
county zoning. It would be nice if. Let's just stir
Been there,
that
done
one.
that.
Let's stir that one.
That was 2010 when that disappeared.
okay. So basically what I've got from this first group here is that the county would be the primary responsibility. I know I didn't really explain that chart yet, but you guys seem to kind of already understand. You'd be the primary responsibility on waterway and trail systems, land, water infrastructure, convening stakeholders, develop and maintain trails. And then while you wouldn't be the primary responsibility, you'd be more of a specific responsibility or a must consult on that list for the affordable housing. Does that sound about right?
And then work with local governments. The second one.
Right. Yeah, yes, okay, yep, that's the big one.
Yeah. It's like I said, if it has infrastructure there, that says county to me.
Yep. Okay. But so it seemed like those were the three that were big in that group, if I'm correct? Okay. All right. That's good for today. So basically what I wanted to get done today was to introduce this chart to you and give you an understanding of what the goal is to get out of this final write-up for the goals and objectives. I hate to assign homework, but is it reasonable for you all to fill out the rest of this chart? Not filling out the entire thing box by box, but just going, you know, let's take the next one, for example. So this blue grouping, it's about 15 boxes or 15 rows. Going through those 15 and saying, these two or these three are the ones that I think the county really needs to prioritize.
Oh.
And then we can talk about,
yeah, that's
I
easy.
think
That's
there's a
easier.
better
That's
approach.
way easier than like the.
Yeah,
D
yeah.
and the
That is a much
I
better
and-
yeah, no, I just had to do that first one because I wanted you to get an idea of what we're looking at.
You want to
but-
make us mad?
Yeah.
No,
It
he
makes
was
you think it was
doing that
terrible.
because he had to read through all that crap from our original plans.
So you want us to
Payback.
do this right now for you?
No.
No.
So,
Homework.
This is homework.
yep. So we'll fill them out. And then at the next meeting, we'll kind of report out and get consensus.
You'll send this to me digitally, because
Yep.
we have two commissioners that aren't here.
Yes, I'll send it digitally and then I'll send kind of a brief
So
description.
what I'm
of
hearing
we're
is we're assigning this to Bob and Art.
Tell them they've been designated as the special committee to get this done.
They're not here.
But yeah, in summary, go through, choose, you know, there might be one section where you go, of these 15, I think 12 of these are really important. Star them.
Okay, I like that.
We'll work as a group to figure out what your main priorities are, and then we'll talk
So for the
about
next meeting, did I hear you say just the
Amongst
blue or
those.
all of it?
all of it.
All of it.
Yep.
You got a month.
I'm very busy in the next one.
And if you think we shouldn't even include it, I don't see the point of filling the rest of it.
Yeah.
Just-
If there's,
Strike it out or something.
that helps too. If there's, like I said, we're not gonna, we're not gonna add on to this list, but if there's anything in here that you go, when we wrote that, it's not relevant anymore, or we did it, cross it out for me, and then when we go back and add the plan, we'll cross that out.
Wasn't this
Sound good?
fun? Aren't you glad?
We have to keep in mind, if we cross something off, we probably can't get funding.
But it might be something that you already have done,
Oh,
you know, that's what, that's kind of stuff that I'm talking,
Okay.
or it might mention a specific grant that's no longer available, or something like that.
So the top 10 are 16.
It could be, there might be only one other one that on that entire list that you want to do, or there might be 30. Just mark them, and then as a group, we'll build consensus on which ones you actually want to focus on.
I like that.
Me too. Sound good?
Mhm.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone.
thank you.
All right, brings us to our last
Oh,
public comment.
I don't really have public comment. Rose brought these down. She said there was a few of you that needed more of the budget at a glance. So here's a stack if you guys wanted to do that up.
yeah, I will take.
I will close public comment.
Sure not.
You sure?
Motion to adjourn.
And sec.
We're adjourned.